Howdy, and welcome to my cellar. Once a year, I try to do the following disclaimer. What I say on this series of videos is my opinion. Nothing I say is official. It's usually just the way I like to do things, or the way if I am asked how I might do something or other. I will occasionally, as tonight is a case, talk about some games that I think they look pretty interesting, and I like to share that. That's really what we did when we started the periodicals. Was I was given free rein to tell people about neat games. And it was whatever I thought was neat. And so that's what Dragon did while I was there. We told people about neat games. Lots of neat games, just because they were neat. They looked interesting. They were intriguing, clever, whatever. I have several card games tonight. And a role-playing game in a genre I'm not normally interested in. But this one has changed my interest a little bit. So anyway, let's go into what we have here. Great to see you again, old man. In reference to, yes. I guess I should have properly called it the Curmudgeon Caravan, but then again, I'm currently reading through the data orb of Metakind and think you have enough cred. I am cred. Okay, not crud. I am a fever-pitched dream with my childhood best buddy at the moment, crafting an adventure for MCC, or at least the story idea for an adventure, so I definitely had mutants on the brain. Eagerly awaiting the scientific barbarian number 6 so I can backorder the whole run with it. Whatever irradiation the SB death die had infused completely worked, because I'm inexplicably, I should have worn my glasses. Inexplicably, or just talk better, obsessed with this system and setting since I got one a few weeks ago. Well, good news for you. As you'll see at the end of this this chapter, the Kickstarter is going live. There's everything there there's a link on the end, so check it out if you're into Mutant Crawl Classics. And believe me, I can tell you, this number 6 is gonna be very impressive in my opinion. And no, I don't get paid to say that. Yeah, if only I got paid to say the things like people think I do, I wouldn't be scuffling. I'm cheering for your library club efforts because I am both a librarian and love to hear my public library colleagues doing wonderful things, and because of my own experience with the school library club, which you graciously let me relay to you all here and receive your advice. I have some anecdotal encouragement for you as well. My school, where our club has been so successful, has just under 800 students and is a predominantly minority, 94% plus. I've had nothing but excitement and curiosity from the moment we began, as you may well recall from my comments. Suffice to say, I think it can simply be a matter of opportunity and exposure to our CRPGs, having time to learn them and play them, the teacher, game master, and many other factors. I think these club members are in good hands. I do too. Sounds good. And I'm delighted that there's a different chapter being written in RPGs, and that's to see much more inclusion of many different people that have not traditionally been involved. My last note, I find myself in need of a new character for the student-run Cthulhu-themed game I described previously. Hope you won't mind, but I made a screenshot of you some weeks ago when you donned the psychedelic Viking helmet for us and created a proper paper pawn, which I felt obligated to dub Gascoigne. This new character was introduced in media res during an encounter, so my first action was to pantomime ingesting a fistful of henbane letting all my dice fall to the table to great effect and laughter. This was followed by the launching of a hand axe across the room and a proper battle cry. Hope all your hand axes hit this week. Okay. Yeah, by the way, about the psychedelic helmet. I took my 6 great grands out trick-or-treating. Now, I went with one of them's daddy. Well, there were 6 of them there altogether, and one of the daddies of 3 went with me. He's walking, I'm riding on my scooter, and of course I had my helmet on, as you can see in the back, and I turned the lights on and the horns because I figured, well, I don't have a light on my mobility scooter. That was my traffic not to get hit. Of course, it never got that dark, but that was, anyway. It was seen in the neighborhood to great amusement. Okay, well, on to the next. Okay, here we go. I promise. I saw this. I was on Facebook earlier in the week, and I said I'd deal with it here. Poking around on Dragon's Foot, I discovered the little fireball that preceded Magic Missile. I don't believe so. I am obsessed with the developmental history of D&D, especially the transitional period between OD&D and AD&D. It also made me take another look at Melf's minute meteors. They are separate spells as far as I know. I have one question. What was the range on these little fireball? The range given for Melf's minute meteors, 1 inch per level, as per Unearthed Arcana 85, leads me to believe it may have been less than the fireball's 24-inch range. Okay. There was no magic missile in the three little books in the brown box. Magic missile came in on at Greyhawk, and it was spotty, hit or not, and of course hits were vague at the time, and whether what table, what chart you used to see if it hit was not real clear. And so if it hit, and the higher the level, the bigger the poof. It was modified in first edition to hit unerringly and so many potential points per level of the thrower. Now that's okay as long as it always hits. We used it in Carbondale differently. Always hit 1 to 3 points. It's what you did. You went around. You could set all the rubbish in the corner on fire. You could knock off that ogre or troll that had 1 hit point left. Whatever. It was a mop-up weapon. The way we used it. It got changed. Now, Melf's minute meteors is something that came well after me. I would suggest that it probably came in the Unearthed Arcana in 85, and is probably something that Gary made for Luke when he was such an enthusiastic young player, that then got finally, in terms of chronology, put out to the public in Unearthed Arcana, which would make sense, something dug up from a campaign from a long time ago. That's my take on it. Before, the original spell was a mortar strike coming in, if it hit. And if it didn't, screw you. You wasted a spell. I like it better where it always hits. I don't like it to inflict quite as much damage because a 10th level wizard throwing magic missile unerringly is going to throw 5 arrows of 1 to 7 points. Anyway, I've also reacquainted myself with flasks of oil for context. Yeah, oil. The biggest that can't happen in all the game. For adventurers to chuck oil and set it on fire, as we all do and have done and will continue to do, you'd have to be carrying around something as volatile as naphtha. And personally, there's no way I'm going to put even one little oil flask of naphtha in my possibles bag and risk having it go off. No. Anyway, back to oil. I gather your version of magic missile hit automatically for 2d4 or 1d3 without additional dice by level, as well as having an incendiary effect. Yes. The version is in the book was like something physical hitting you, thumping you, giant mud ball, big mud ball, whatever, physical damage. I liked it to be able to, like I say, light the aforementioned trash fire, or chuck that oil over into the corner and shoot a magic missile into it, watch it all go up. That's okay. It was on its way to the published version, but it didn't happen. It was kind of a compromise. It always hit, but the damage was quite variable. 1 to 7, that's a d6 plus 1. No, that's not. How did we do 1 to 7? D8 minus 1? I don't remember. Anyway, when I need to know, I'll remember. It was a debate that Gary and I had over probably over the course of a year. Every once in a while, I bring it up to bug him, and apparently, I finally got partway there. Anyway, that's what I remember. Mouse minute meteors thing. That's well after my time there, and well after I was guarding the canon that were the rules. Wow, did I repeat something here? I'm sorry. Bear with me. Okay, now what's this? Okay, it looks like I repeated something. Oops. I'm sure you've been through this story before. I learned to play D&D in Carbondale from when my friend introduced me to the game in 1981. Wow, that was right. 6 years after I left. Until I moved west in 93. I was part of the Strategic Game Society from 88 to 93 at SIU Carbondale. It's great to know my gaming roots reset from that same town where you reached that same town where you ran a campaign. And I don't know if I remember. I can't remember if I talked about this last week, but I'll briefly repeat it that a couple of guys from Carbondale regaled me with tales of how my original group are legendary at Carbondale. That's so cool. Are large weapons and armor made for giants usable by average-sized characters? No. No weapons. There was a time when in the back of the little brown books, it said that if you have a question, type it out on a single sheet of paper and enclose a self-addressed stamped envelope, and someone would give you an answer. And that was not a duty any of us enjoyed. And it was, it was on a rotating thing, and oh yeah, it's your turn. And so Gary got the duty one week, and he said, he called to Brian and I, because we were rotating the duty at that time. He said, listen to this. Here's the question. How fast can a dwarf run in armor? And Brian started computing. And I go, what are you going to tell him? He goes, they can't run it off. It's horse burning. And we just lost it. It's what we wrote down. And that's what we sent back. There's certain things that you really shouldn't have to ask, because we found out that common sense and playing role-playing games did not mesh well at the very beginning. You know, what do you mean I can't swim in chainmail? Well, why don't you jump into your swimming pool carrying about 20 pounds of tire chains and tell me how that works out. How fast can a dwarf run? No. Maybe if it so happened in my campaign that some giants were defeated, and it came that somebody saw the giant silverware, a fork and a knife. The forks might make a weapon for a really, somewhere up around 17, 18 strength, perhaps like a pitchfork or whatever, but not very adept, not very balanced. I can't even see an eating knife belonging to a giant being able to be wielded by anybody that didn't have what I call the ridiculous strengths, the comic book strengths. So I'd say, in general, no. Since you've had the opportunity to sit at the table of many of the greats who ran or still runs the best game by your estimation, it's unfortunate given his very likely political commitments, but I believe I would have enjoyed playing Tecumseh with M.A.R. Barker. Also, that GameCon doofus sounds like a wonderful target of opportunity for some cutting witticism. Well, mine was mostly obscene, but there was a couple of shots, yeah. That's a really, really tough question. When it came to running a celebrity game and being able to corral all the egos at the table, I never met anybody better than Doug Ray, since passed, who ran North Texas RPG Con. He was amazing at being able to keep all the 10. He would stack the table with 10 or 12 celebrities. It was a charity thing, and the way he rode herd on us was astounding. When it comes to riding herd, Bill Webb and Matt French, I have seen run amazing games with 16, 17, 18 players in the room. And the two of them are up standing on chairs like two demented maestros. And the players are obviously having a really, really great time. Gary was probably the most frustrating when we were playtesting, because he wouldn't tell you diddly squat. I've said before, I was 2 or 3 nights before the neatly cut and stacked lumber in the corner we figured out was a staircase, and the black button on the wall up there, because we knew don't push buttons, opened a door that led somewhere else. He didn't describe. He described stuff like he was Margaret Mead writing up something about her find. Leaky. It was so, you couldn't squeeze a clue out of him, and that made it a whole level different of play and interaction. It was different. Since then, or besides those people, Jim Ward can spin a tale like few others. He has a talent, very soft spoken, very gentle, and completely and totally ruthless and without conscience, any shred of conscience. Um, so playing one of his games is always a hoot. No, Matt Finch of Swords and Wizardry and Webb from Frog God Games are probably the two of the better. Now, when it comes to theatrics, nobody can beat Stefan Picorni because he comes out and he lays out an entire dungeon out of his dwarven forge stuff and covers portions of it until you get there. So it's a real different experience. I'll probably think of 4 or 5 others later tomorrow, but that's who comes to mind now. It wasn't a kid at Game Hole. He's probably 30, might have been 32. I don't know. It's harder for me. But I mean, he wasn't a kid. Just a. Well, I have a phrase. All right, now, there came a number of comments about people of color and females playing in the game. And some of the comments showed a certain insensitivity or innocence of how it really worked if they only had their own background and experiences to draw from. I don't pretend to understand somebody else's culture, no matter how hard I've studied it. And I try to be as sensitive and inoffensive as I can. I still am. Game Hole Con, I had females in every one of my Wheel of Blame games, every one, and we had a great time. And I always preface a game with, if this starts to go anywhere where you feel uncomfortable, all you gotta do is squirm a little visibly and I'll turn the corner and we'll go somewhere else. I'm not here to make anybody uncomfortable, etc., etc. And everybody's, no, bring it on, bring it on. So if I were to go by that experience, my experience, well, every woman that plays at a role-playing game would be many different women than the ones that go at my game, because I know they're going, okay, bring it on, bring it on. And this individual had many refutations about his seeming insensitivities. I don't want to go into that. We all have different experiences. If your experiences have included people of color and females at all your tables and that, wonderful. That means that what we've been working almost 50 years toward, it might be another 10 years down the road. And that would be equality, having a product, a game, a system that would appeal to everybody. But hell, I mean, not every guy likes to read military history. Not every woman reads romance novels. Not everybody has to like it. But if somebody wants to try it out, I want them to feel comfortable. Now, the fun part tonight. I'm going to show you some cool games that I picked up this past con. And I've had a chance to read through them now and give you my impressions. And after I've had a chance to actually play them out many times, I'll come back and tell you more. I bought, but for one, I bought every one of these. So there's no obligation here. And I would have bought the other one, but I didn't want to make a scene arguing that yes, I should, no, I shouldn't, and so whatever. And believe me, I have lots of friends in this business that can't write a game for shit. So if a person that I talk about a system a friend of mine happened to write it, there's going to be one of many possible factors. Either there's somebody in the industry with a record, there's somebody with a product I think is really cool, there's somebody with a new idea. Okay, so having said that, I'm going to start with a role-playing game in a genre that I don't play, and that's outer space. Now, this isn't way out in the distant future where we've got, miraculous, faster-than-light systems and all this. It's just 200 years in the future. It's called Lance. It's very practical, doesn't require much disbelief, adventuring in an atmosphere of no oxygen. Really interesting series, system. It's written by Chris Clark, who has never completely shed a wry sense of humor. It's also co-written by Jim Ward. If it's got sci-fi, it's probably got Jim's fingers in it. Really interesting, really different take. A number of interesting companion books, how to build a spaceship, different things on planetary. Interesting system. Lance. Next time you're at your friendly local and you see it, look at it. If you're into sci-fi, okay, you might like it a lot. Let's see, what's next? Oh, well, this isn't new, but I did buy it, and that is a remake of a favorite of one of my all-time favorite silly games, and quite frankly, I was surprised to learn who it was designed by, Ken Whitman. And that's Gru the Barbarian. Steve Jackson Games just kickstarted it again. I'm sure there'll be plenty of them around. It's a silly, fun, I like to call them beer and pretzel games or warm-up games. It's just for fun. It's based on the art and story of Sergio Aragonés and his comic strip about Gru the Barbarian. Nice component pieces and everything. I like card games, which is what I'm doing tonight. I like card games because when we had a larger group, 6 or 7 players every week or two, usually every 2 weeks, there was always somebody late, for good reasons or bad. And so we always were looking for something to play, to warm up, to get into the gaming mood, if you will. And they usually involve card games where we got to screw each other over. Stuff like naval war and nuclear war and things like that. Gru, it would have been a good one. A really odd one I got. It's an adult game. It's clearly labeled NSFW right there in the corner. Right there. Unstable Unicorns. It's funny. I find it funny. It's not going to be for everybody because there's a lot of bawdy and double entendre humor in it, and some of it's just no double entendre. It's just there. But for an instant party game amongst a bunch of friends, interesting. Check it out. Unstable Unicorns. Again, none of these games take more than an hour to play. Most of them considerably less. Now, this is an old one, I know. About 15 years old now. But the premise is quite interesting. It's a Z-Man game called The Middle Kingdom. And it's got some pretty subtle strategies and a lot of what my group always liked, and that's opportunities to stab each other in the back, trying to control the emperor and therefore control the world. This one I found called Anecdote. Now I'm pretty sure this is a new one, and it's interesting premise. You're all infected, and you hope that by the time the game winds down, you have the antidote, and the only one that has the antidote wins. Everybody else dies. But there's deduction and there's scheming and whatever. I thought it was a real interesting. It's ages 13 up, 2 to 7 players, 30-minute playtime. See, what was Middle Kingdoms? 12 plus, 2 to 5. I always look for games that are 5 or 6 players if I can find them, because we have a large group. Now, here again, this is a Rio Grande game, and it's from a few years ago again. But I like finding things from a few years ago sitting around on the shelves that were overlooked. And let's face it, there are probably, this is from '07, there are probably at least a dozen good games that never catch the interest, especially if they aren't kickstarted. This wasn't, obviously, it was from, Rio Grande. Wool Rules. Oop, oop, there we go. Silly, all about sheep. A really interesting bid system using a 10, a 12, and an 8. You have to, the person that bids the highest number gets first pick of the sheep. But to do that, you got to be able to roll. And with a 16.5 as an average, where do you go? And if two players bid the same number, both of them get screwed. Our kind of game. Wool Rules. Silly, but some real good strategy in there. And then, here's another new one. And it's not from any of the companies that we normally see in the booths at game conventions. But, damn. Real simple. Dumb ways to die. And that's what it is. Dumb ways to die. I saw it on a table as I was zipping down a hallway. I said, ooh, who's selling that? Because I just, I got to, I'm going to go see it. Nobody. Oh, can I look at it? Yeah. I ended up getting it at Walmart. And it's a hoot. And it's all about dying dumb. Or not dying dumb. Or causing the other guy to die dumb. And it's got a unique die. And it has wiggle pictures. One whole deck is wiggle pictures. The moving, what we call wiggle pictures. We used to look for them in Cracker Jack. One whole deck, the back are wiggle pictures. You can't win. You can't lose. You can't do anything but win. And it says, win or die trying. Because that's what it's about. You got 3 beans. Like 3 lives. And the last person with a living bean wins the game. Simple, fun, what we all like to interact in, especially to warm up for a role-playing game where the interaction at the table is going to be intense and hopefully all on beam, all on target, everybody on the same page. Okay, remember, Strategic Barbarian number 6 is getting ready to go live. So look at the end of this and you'll find a link and go. Let's see, what else? Trying to think if there's anything else I'm supposed to. No, I guess not. It's the season that we start coming indoors. We winterized our backyard today and spent a few hours out there doing things. So make sure you take care of your plants. Make sure you have a area cleaned off inside to play games on. And until then, until the next time, until who knows when, do dada gobi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Called it Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.